16-year-old boy and a 79-year-old man were identified Wednesday. The boy was a day away from starting his junior year at high school. The majority of the victims were aged 65 or older. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose from your fave 4, including a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
The NBA sent a clear message that they want to see the league's best players on the court as much as possible. The Board of Governors approved a new policy for resting players that could result in fines up to $1 million. Teams will be subject to penalties if they continually rest players for national TV games or sit out multiple All-Stars in the same game. The new rules have exceptions for players 35 and older, but the NBA has had enough of load management. Hope the Clippers have a complete understanding of this new rule. For some reason, the Rams don't want to explain why backup quarterback Stetson Bennett was placed on the non-football injury list. The rookie from Georgia is required now to miss the Rams' next 4 games. Matthew Stafford and Brett Rypien are the only quarterbacks on the Rams roster. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, a different perspective on the historic March on Washington 60 years ago. As a matter of fact, I was just reading earlier today that this Sunday, it's 60 years since the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, or Bombingham as they called it then, where those 4 little girls were killed. Such is the march of time. You get to moments like these where you're looking back on these historic events, these major anniversaries. And so this Sunday, 60 years since they killed those four little girls. Spike Lee. I think some of the best work Spike's ever done is that documentary, Four Little Girls. It's an amazing piece of work by Spike Lee. If you've never seen it, maybe this weekend's a good chance to check it out. But it's a wonderful piece of work about the families and the backstory and the years to come following what happened to those four little girls that day. But in our second hour, once again, a different perspective on the March on Washington, which we just celebrated days ago, 60 years later. We'll excavate the radical roots of that march and more with the distinguished historian Dr. Yahuwah Williams, that in hour two. In our third hour, when he was just 20, Joshua Bennett was invited to perform a spoken word poem for President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. He was on program at the same White House Poetry Jam where a guy named Lin-Manuel Miranda declaimed the opening bars of a work in progress that would soon revolutionize American theater. Of course, that work in progress would later be known as Hamilton. So fast forward about 15 years, and Joshua Bennett is now Dr. Joshua Bennett, and he joins us in hour three for a conversation about the cultural history of spoken word. That said, in this hour today, the first hour, two more conversations. On the B side of this hour, noted economist and public intellectual Dr. Julianne Malveaux joins us for a conversation about how black folk are faring in our current economy, where gas prices are once again pushing up inflation. And we'll talk about the unique ways black folk have historically managed to survive and thrive in good times and in not so good times. And speaking of the economy, we commenced today's show in conversation with the ranking Democrat and former chair of the House Financial Services Committee, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Let's get her reflections right now on the 15th anniversary of the 2008 financial crisis and whether it could happen once again. Congresswoman Waters, always an honor to have you on this program. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing fine, and just listening to your agenda with Tavis, and that's tremendous. The kind of work that you guys are doing just really is, the kind of work that needs to be done to educate our community. Keep them in touch. I love it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. That means a lot to me personally, and the work that we're doing coming from you, Congresswoman Waters. So thank you, Auntie Maxine. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Let me just jump right in. It's almost hard to imagine in some ways. In other ways, it seems like yesterday. This financial crisis that threatened to ruin and wreck this country. Thanks to the behavior of some greedy folk. I'll leave that to you to unpack. But does it seem that far away to you 15 years ago?
Well, the work of trying to make our financial institutions responsible, all of our banking, all of Wall Street is ongoing work. Oftentimes, the overall public is not aware of what we have to do to hold them accountable. I just left a hearing where they want to not increase, the amount of resources, the money that the banks hold, so that in case of a meltdown of some kind or run on the bank, they have the money to survive. And so, I was surprised not again at the Republicans, who simply was protecting the big banks again and not wanting them to have the capital that they need to have available in order to ensure that they can meet the demands at any given time for that capital. And so it's ongoing. But yes, I was right in the middle of what happened September 15, 2008, when Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. And at the time of its collapse, Lehman was the fourth largest investment bank in the United States with about, I think it was $639 billion in assets and $639 billion in liabilities. And so that was the start of it. Nobody knew what to do. It was absolutely a shocker. And so for years, the Wall Street banks, like Lehman Brothers, had bundled up these predatory mortgage loans. Now, when I say predatory, these are the kind of loans where, they had started to, put loans out with no down payments, put loans out with little down payments and promising that, people could get into these homes, didn't tell them that the devil was going to come due and the interest rates were going to increase tremendously, and they would not be earning any more money 5 years from now than they were earning now. And when those interest rates increase and your mortgage increase, you may be double, then you're about to lose your home. And, of course, that happened all over this country. And so, yes, I recall it. Was involved in the conference committee that created the Dodd-Frank reforms to try and deal with all of this predatory lending.
No, it's a fascinating story of what happened, and so many books have been written about it. I've interviewed people over the course of my career about what happened, but it's nothing like talking to somebody who was right there in Congress in the midst of this. Our guest in this first half hour is the ranking Democrat on the House Financial Services Committee, former chair of that committee, of course, when Democrats ran the House, and she was in the midst of it. I look forward to unpacking a bit more with Congresswoman Maxine Waters when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Dilly, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit catblack.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with NCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Hi, this is LA City Councilman Curran Price, inviting you to the 28th Annual Central Avenue Jazz Fest on September the 23rd from 11 to 7 p.m. For nearly 3 decades, the Central Avenue Jazz Festival has paid homage to the legendary Central Avenue and its influence on jazz history. Jazz, blues, and Latin jazz will be featured on 3 stages of music. Co-headlining are Hubert Laws with special guest Eloise Laws and the Billy Childs Quartet featuring Sean Jones. The day includes plenty of food, merchants, and 4 pavilions focused on youth programming, art, health and wellness, and public resources. Parking is limited, so Metro and rideshare are recommended. Hubert Laws with special guests Eloise Laws and the Billy Childs Quartet featuring Sean Jones. The day includes plenty of food, merchants, and 4 pavilions focused on youth programming, art, health and wellness, and public resources. For more information, visit centralavjazzfest.com. centralavjazzfest.com. See you on the 23rd.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley in conversation with Congresswoman Maxine Waters as we talk about the financial collapse of 15 years ago, believe it or not. There is some breaking news on Donald Trump that we'll get to and get her take on as well. There's always breaking news on Donald Trump these days.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. Too much of that. So I'll get her take on that in just a moment. A judge has ruled on Donald Trump request in Georgia. So we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Stick around. You'll hear Maxine Waters sound off on that. I'll break it down for you and get your take on it. That said, though, I guess the penultimate question is whether or not what happened 15 years ago you think can happen again.
Absolutely, it could happen. Let me just, tell you that the biggest financial institutions in this country have to be made accountable. We have to watch them. We have to challenge them. We have to find them. Right in the Crenshaw area, down the street from the Tavis Smiley building is something called City National Bank. Mm-hmm. It's a little bank that they stuck on Crenshaw Avenue to try and make believe that they had diversity in lending. We caught them, and we fined them. They didn't even have someone there who could take information to give you a mortgage. They were trying to make it look as if they were serving the black community. And, of course, I went up to Consolidated Realty with all of the realtors, and I told them that, you're looking for places to get your clients' mortgages financed. Right down the hill from you is this bank that's taking money out of the community, but they're not putting it back in, and so you've got to challenge them. Take your request for mortgages down there and make them fund them. But we find them the largest fine that we've fined any banks in the state for years, and so we have to make them accountable. And so, yes, it could happen if we allow those who rely on the special interests for funding their campaigns, et cetera, to rule them. And, boy, they have a lot of support. The banks are very, very big, very important, and very influential in government. And so we have to fight all the time against that. Yes, we could have failures like you had in Silicon Valley Bank recently, and you had 3 banks that failed. And, of course, the government got together, and we did what was necessary to keep it from being a run on the banks. But that's an example of what could happen, and it could be so large and so many banks involved that the government would not be able to do what it did with the 3 banks that failed in our own state. Happened to be not in Los Angeles area, but up in the San Francisco area.
You've been in Washington a long time, and you are a powerful player in Washington, as I said, as chairman of this committee some time ago, now the ranking Democrat. You wield a lot of power in D.C., and frankly, nobody in the history of this republic, I want to put a fine point on this, nobody in the history of this republic who is black has ever had as much power as Maxine Waters has in Congress over the banking industry. I mean, I want to be clear about the role that she's played and the power she's wields today, even in Congress when it comes to the banking community. So let me just ask you a point-blank question. If I said to you that I believe that Washington is bought and bossed by big banks and big money, you'd say what? You'd agree or disagree with that?
Well, I basically agree. Now, that's not 100% of all the members of Congress.
Sure,
we have progressive members, but yes, they have a lot of influence. They spend a lot of money on elected officials and campaigns, and they walk around here like they own it, and they can walk into the Treasurer's office. They can walk into the Fed's office. They can walk into FDIC's office or OCC's office. All of our regulators, they're so big, they have these relationships. That's why the progressives in this Congress are constantly fighting with not only the regulators, but with the banks themselves. And I plan on having a hearing in Los Angeles with the biggest banks to talk about what they're doing as a result of the fines that we have made and the mutual understanding we're supposed to have about how they will continue any fraudulent actions, any predatory lending. And so I want the people to understand what they have agreed that they would do to fix all of this. But, yes, they have a lot of power and a lot of influence.
15 years ago, you'll recall very clearly, the mantra was that these banks were too big to fail. They were too big to fail.
That's right.
How do you read that frame, that phrase? How do you read it in retrospect, and how do you read it in real time, that these banks were too big to fail?
Well, absolutely. The same And the description is still true. Because let me tell you, we find them, and it's only the cost of doing business. They can pay these fines and keep going. And as you know, they enter into our economy in some very interesting ways. When we had COVID and we were assisting the families and we had, ways by we could put money into the homes, you know who ran all of that? The banks. And, of course, we had to depend on them. And guess what they did? They created these portals for their concierge clients, and they took care of businesses that were not even eligible, and we had to pull a lot of that money back, and we then had to recreate more money so that the CDFIs, that is community financial institutions, and the small banks could get their share of what we were putting out there in order to make the loans to businesses and try and keep them over.
There were some folk.
Struggle.
There were some folk. You recall this? I remember it well. There were some during that PPP period when they were passing out this money. As you said, the banks were doing this. There were some major companies that got money, didn't even ask for it. They turned the money back in. They didn't even ask for it.
That's right. And some of them turned it back, and we went and made others turn it back in. But the banks were taking care of their big clients. And the big clients, like you said, some of them weren't even asking for it. So it's a constant watch on them because they have so much power. They are so integral to our economy until they have the power, they know how to wield the power. And the only way to try to hold them in check is to find them, to call them out, to do everything that is necessary to force them to do what is right. We can count on our community banks. The community banks are not the same as the regional banks and the big banks. The community banks are the smaller banks who tend to work better with their constituents in those communities. The big boys are, the big Wells Fargo, it is Bank of America, it is City National. These are the big ones. And there are any number of them who basically are very powerful and very influential.
When people walk up to you, as I assume they do here and there, and of course I've been with you a number of places, and so I'm there when people walk up to you. I've seen it. But when folk walk up to you and ask you, given all the drama in our banking system, where they should put their money, and I'm not talking about a particular bank by name. I'm not trying to shout anybody out. Given what you've laid out, though, when people ask you where they should put their money, what do you say?
I tell people to support their community bank. I tell people to support a community bank where you can go sit down and talk with someone, where you can count on being responded to. The big banks now, even on their telephone menus, they're so convoluted until you can't get through. And they really don't want, smaller customers in their banks, and they're trying to make everything digital to keep them out of the banks. They don't want to have tellers anymore. They want to create and turn all of this into digital. The smaller banks still relate to their customers, and still you can go into the bank and you can talk with someone. Still you can ask for a loan and either get it or they tell you what you need to do in order to secure, your collateral so that you can get that loan. But the big boys, they don't have time for you anymore. I don't recommend them at all.
Finally, on this issue, we'll talk a little politics in the 5 minutes we have left here before I let you go. Before you have to go, put it that way, not before I let you go, before you have to go. You mentioned earlier in this conversation at the very top, in fact, that you were in a hearing earlier today, in fact, and Republicans did not want to force these banks to put more money on deposit, if you will, so that if, in fact, there's a run on the banks, increase their capital. Exactly. Right. Republicans didn't want that. And again, I'm not naive in asking this. I understand they're all cozy and these relationships exist. But given what happened 15 years ago, why would they be stuck on stupid? We know this could happen again. Why would they not make them put more capital away?
They're brazen. They're absolutely brazen. And the reasons that they gave, if they have to hold more capital, they can't make the loans. And had nerve enough to say, in so many words, this is going to hurt minorities. They won't be able to get the mortgages, and they won't be able to lend money. Well, they're not doing that anyway to the degree that they should be doing it. But they're brazen, and even in the face of the the meltdowns that we've had going back, to what happened in 2008. And even what happened recently in California with Silicon Valley Bank and the others, they're brazen, and they still stand up for the banks and what the banks want. And so that's why we have to be in power. We have to get our numbers up so that those of us who are willing to fight can fight to do things like we did with the Dodd-Frank reforms, where we could deal with predatory lending. Redlining is still going on, believe me. Predatory lending is still going on. We have been able to deal with it somewhat, but still the banks are not doing what they should be doing.
Yeah. Some breaking Trump news here. As I said earlier, I want to get your take on this. So a judge in Georgia has ruled just today that Donald Trump will not have to stand trial in October. There's a lot in this story. I'm just reading it myself even as I'm talking to you. But the bottom line is that he won't have to stand trial in October. He's given Trump and 16 other co-defendants more time to prepare. And so here starts the process. Here's the bottom line. This starts the process that many were concerned about, that some of these judges in some of these cases might, again, start to give him more time to push these cases back. And if that happens, it delays what many are hoping would happen, and that is that there might be some guilty verdicts in the midst of this campaign, and that might impact the outcome. So here's the first time we see a judge ruling that he does not have to go on trial with others in October, and giving him more time in that Georgia case. Your thoughts on that are writ large?
Well, here's what's happening. First of all, the kind of lawyers that he have, these are big, well-paid lawyers who spend time, 24 hours a day learning the system and how to impact the system. And this moneyed lawyers will, go in with the kind of arguments, the kind of influence, the kind of relationships that get these kind of decisions. I don't know exactly what reasons this judge gave. Sometimes they're saying constitutionally, if they can make the case that they won't be prepared in time to go in, say like in October, there's some discussions that say constitutionally you got to give them more time. I don't know what the case is here, but of course, Trump is an expert at having the lawyer teams throughout his life that goes into courts and win on a lot of issues. Not only now that he is being indicted for basically, all of what we've learned about how he tried to influence the elections, et cetera, but it goes way back to when he and his daddy did not rent to people of color. They were discriminating against them. In that case, they ended up being paid a fine, but the people who had been harmed could not talk about it. They could not reveal how bad it was or what happened to them. But that's been any number of cases that he's had. He's cheated, contractors. He's treated, really cheated the small subcontractors even, and he wins because he has these lawyers that he pays millions of dollars, and he's been raising millions of dollars. Even every time he gets indicted, he raises more money from his crowd, and he's got it to spend on these well-paid fancy lawyers.
Yeah.
They go into court using everything that they know, whether it's claiming it's constitutional or otherwise. They know every trick in the book.
Yeah. Finally here, there's a poll just came out today as well. Just came across my desk as we were talking. A new poll from USA Today and Suffolk University Sawyer Business School, which ties in nicely to our conversation. You don't want to hear this, I'm going to tell you anyway. There's a new poll this poll says that Americans trust Donald Trump more than Joe Biden to make the economy better by an 11-point margin. Now, it's just one poll, but it is USA Today, credible outlet. But an 11-point margin, by an 11-point margin, Americans trust Trump more than Biden to make the economy better. Is that ridiculous or what to you?
It is just painful.
Yeah.
It is more than ridiculous. It just hurts that you have that kind of ignorance and you have that kind of commitment to someone who is undermining our entire democracy. that remains in this country. It's not to be understood, except I think race plays a big role in it.
I think you're right about that. What's sad about this is that Joe Biden has done such a good job stewarding the economy.
Great job.
Yeah, and he just can't get the credit. These polls keep suggesting that Trump would be better on the economy. I don't get it. It's something. There's something wrong. We have a dumbed down democracy, if you ask me. But I digress on that. Congressman Waters, thank you for the conversation as always. Thank you for being there. Thank you for the important role you're playing on the Financial Services Committee. And you're welcome here anytime. And you well know that.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate you and the fact that you're providing the information and education that our communities need. Thank you.
Thank you so much. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward. Stay with us.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A judge in Georgia is rejecting a request from prosecutors to try Donald Trump and 18 co-defendants together in the Georgia election interference case. Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee severed cases of attorneys Kenneth Chesbrough and Sidney Powell from the others today. The two requested a speedy trial, which is scheduled for October 23rd. Trump and the remaining defendants will be tried at a later date. New York City African-American Mayor Eric Adams is supporting actors and writers on strike. The mayor joined the picket line in Midtown Manhattan Wednesday morning, calling for a fair resolution. The Writers Guild of America has been on strike since May, and members of SAG-AFTRA joined them in July. Their sticking points have been the same since day one, including better streaming residuals. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Seeing a Sigler working through East LA, East Love. You're taking that 60 West at Downey Road. A crash with two right lanes blocked. We're slow from Santa Anita Avenue. The transitions to the 710 North and South to the 60 West, those have been reopened. This is an overturned box truck. Still seeing two right lanes blocked, 60 West at Downey Road. Seeing a broken down vehicle in Carson on the 110 South at 223rd Street. That's stuck in the right lane just past that 405, the busy drive. The 110 South at Rosecrans, also seeing a wreck onto the right shoulder. Norwalk, your 105 East to the 605 South transition. Look out for a collision onto the shoulder in this area.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose from your fave 4, including a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
Warning. If you are 60 or older, RSV can be a dangerous respiratory virus.
Not all dangers come with warning labels. Talk to your pharmacist or doctor about getting vaccinated against RSV today. Learn more at bewareofrsv.com. This message is brought to you by Pfizer.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
The NBA sent a clear message that they want to see the league's best players on the court as much as possible. The Board of Governors approved a new policy for resting players that could result in fines up to $1 million. Teams will be subject to penalties if they continually rest players for national TV games or sit out multiple All-Stars in the same game. The new rules have exceptions for players 35 and older, but the NBA has had enough of load management. Hope the Clippers have a complete understanding of this new rule. For some reason, the Rams don't want to explain why backup quarterback Stetson Bennett was placed on the non-football injury list. The rookie from Georgia is required now to miss the Rams' next 4 games. Matthew Stafford and Brett Ripien are the only quarterbacks on the Rams roster. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Now. We tend not to think about now. We dream about tomorrow, relive yesterday. But right now in front of us is victory over cancer. Right now, cancer research funded by the V Foundation is leading to better treatments and saving lives. Victory over cancer is there for the taking by you, because today's cancer research is tomorrow's victory. Learn more at v.org.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Extreme heat can make you very sick and can be deadly. For Californians 65 and over, it's important to have a plan. Ask your healthcare provider if your medications affect your ability to cool down. Know the signs of heat illness and stroke, as well as the location of your nearest cooling center or air-conditioned space. And if you have loved ones over 65, be sure to check in on them on hot days. Learn how to stay safer from extreme heat at heatreadyca.com. Brought to you by the state of California.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Following that conversation with Maxine Waters, the former chair of the Financial Services Committee in the House, now the ranking Democrat on that committee, we move to a noted economist, MIT-trained economist, distinguished economist, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, who joins us now for a conversation on how black people are faring in this current economy, where gas prices are once again pushing up inflation, and to talk about how black folk have historically managed to survive and thrive in good times and not so good times. If you're in the Southern California area, I'll tell you where you can see Dr. Malveaux this weekend. But for now, let me welcome her back to this program. Dr. Malveaux, how are you today?
I am wonderful, Tavis. How are you?
If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am doing well and always delighted to be in dialogue with you. Let me pick up where I just left off with Maxine Waters. Literally, while I was talking to her, a new poll just dropped and came across my desk here on the air. And the headline is that Americans, don't laugh, but Americans trust Trump more than Biden to make the economy better by an 11-point margin. This is a new poll from USA Today, credible outlet, of course. USA Today, along with Suffolk University Sawyer Business School. And this poll, again, just published, suggests that Americans trust Trump more than Biden by 11 points to make the economy better. I asked Maxine Waters what she thought about it, and I asked her how ridiculous she thought it was. She said, Tavis, it's more than just ridiculous. For her, she said, it's painful. This is painful to see this kind of ignorance on display. So that's what Maxine Waters has to say. What does Julianne Malveaux have to say?
Hey, well, I'm with Max on that one. Auntie got it right. This is beyond painful. However, let's put a couple footnotes on this. Number one, the Biden administration does a very poor job of PR. They do not toot their horn as well as they should. When we look at the numbers, inflation is down. We're like at 1.2% inflation, as opposed to this time last year was 8.2, Tavis. So it has been coming down. But Americans don't necessarily look at the big picture. They look at what hit them on their pocketbook today. So if you went to the gas station a week ago and you went back today, your gas prices are up. So you're mad. If you went to buy some eggs and the egg prices have gone up, you're mad. You're not looking at all your prices. Some of your prices have gone down. But what comes out of your pocket today, which you have to go, go in your pocket and get your credit card or get a piece of cash for, has gone up. And so people are upset about that. But they forget that under Trump, inflation was rising. They forget that because too many people, that's why Maxine is so right, Congressman Ward is so right, tunnel vision, ignorance, just looking at the small picture. That's what got us that orange man in the first place, looking at the small picture. They didn't like Hillary. Well, she's not coming to your house. She's not going to cook you dinner. You don't have to like her. And you see what we got because they didn't like Hillary. So now when you look at the economy, people who trust Trump more are really saying they don't like what's going on now and they can't get their hands around it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. When you say that the Biden administration does a poor job of tooting its own horn, everywhere I look these days, I see them talking about Bidenomics. I mean, they are pushing out this Bidenomics that they've even named it after him.
Yeah, but what does it mean to anyone?
Yeah.
You start calling it Bidenomics, you're not saying here's what they have to say to me. This is what we did. If your mama has diabetes and you were paying $100 for insulin shot and now you're paying $35, you have had relief. You know, and that they're not breaking it down. People do not want high level theory.
Yeah.
They want what's going on at my kitchen table, out of my pocketbook. They don't want, you to be soaring great about this and that. They want to know, what have you done for me lately? And too many in the Biden administration. I mean, I love Karine. I think she's terrific. But I think that she too often does not put it out there. And she's not the only one. He's got a council of economic advisors. Those are all really smart people. I know a lot of them. They need to be out on the hustings. I mean, he has not utilized his posse as well as he might. And he's paying for it with these polls.
Yeah. Let me give you some more numbers from this poll. I'm not really a numbers person. I don't like to give too many numbers, but I think a couple of these are instructive and informative. First of all, the question they asked in this poll, Julianne, the question was, thinking about improving the economy, who do you trust more, President Joe Biden or former President Donald Trump, to improve the economy? That's the question they asked that leads to an 11-point margin. Americans feel that Trump is better than Biden to steward the economy. So that was the question they asked. But there are a couple of numbers I want to throw at you right quick. 70% of Americans in this poll say they feel the economy is getting worse. 70% say they feel the economy is getting worse. Never mind all that Joe Biden has done to steward this economy in the ways that you just described. But still, 70% say they feel that it's getting worse. 84% of Americans say their cost of living is rising. And just less than half, or 49%, say they see their cost of living rising the most in food prices, with housing costs in second, and it goes on from there. So these numbers I just shared, some of this underscores what you've just said, which is to say that it's not about what the White House is saying, it's about what people are feeling. But here's where I get lost. When what people are feeling is directly different than what the White House is saying based on the data.
Well, again, Tavis, I don't think that the average American looks at overall inflation.
Right.
They look at what is inflation doing to me. Like I said, if last week you went to the grocery store and you spent $100 for your groceries, this week you go and you spend $103. Even that's just 3%. That's still $3 more.
Sure.
You're paying attention to that. You know, I bought $100 worth of groceries last week. Now I have to spend more money. If your school lunches go up a little bit, you're looking at that. I mean, and many of these things are very micro. They're small things, but they're not small when you're on a tight budget. And here's what we know. We know that there are so many Americans who are on tight budgets. We know that there are many, like the auto workers, the big strike going on there, the auto workers who essentially are asking for a 40% pay increase over a 4-year period, so 10% a year. And Ford especially is coming back and saying, oh, hell no. But these folks gave money back in 2008 when the automobile industry was in crisis. So these are people who are looking at, I mean, they're not broke. Auto workers are paid well, many of them, not the part-time workers. But they're looking and saying, I see stuff going up, but nothing is going up for me. Yeah. And when we look at wages have not, they've gone up a little bit, but they haven't gone up enough. And so people are feeling a bit squeezed. The other thing we see happening is that predatory capitalism is thriving, which is why we see all these strikes around the country. You know, Tavis in the entertainment industry. We just averted the strike with UPS. We're looking at auto strike. We're looking at a couple others around the country. Workers are clawing back because of just these very numbers. But what they forget is they think that it's bad now. But what is that song? If you think you're lonely now, wait until tonight. Yeah. Elect Trump and find out what he does for unions.
Yeah. Let me ask you right quick when we move forward here. How concerned are you, how scared are you, though, that numbers like this, when I say numbers, I'm not this poll, if we keep seeing poll numbers like this, and people can poo-poo polls all day long, I get tired of them myself. But if you keep seeing polls like this that suggest that people think Trump would be better on the economy than Biden, assuming that he's the presumptive nominee, this does open a door, does it not? A door for Trump, I mean.
It absolutely does. No, it absolutely does. And so let's if you break it down electorally, a third of all Republicans are hardline Trump. Like he said, he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, they still vote for him. A third of them. A third of them are probably but they don't see a better alternative. And these kind of numbers tilt them toward Trump. And those in the middle, they could go either way. But again, when they're looking at the economy and the economy only, they're not looking at other things, then they say, well, he may do a better job. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has not done their work. Yeah. They have not done their work and putting out. They've done their work. I mean, there's so many things they've done. I mean, there's so many positive things, but they don't sell it.
Yeah. Let me come to that when we move forward here. But this is my concern. I just want to underscore this right quick. This is my concern that if these numbers again keep suggesting that Americans think that Trump would be better on the economy than Joe Biden, that is a real problem. It does, in fact, open a door for Donald Trump. You heard Malvo say earlier, and I agree, Dr. Malvo, that Americans always vote their pocketbook interest. And if they think that this guy is better than that guy in stewarding the economy in their household, you got a real fight on your hand. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
In Big Tobacco's Fantasyland, children are the future. Here, tobacco companies are committed to higher education, offering scholarships to students who submit essays about the benefits of vaping. The tobacco industry even sponsors summer camps for kids. Don't worry, the tobacco-sponsored programs have been linked to leaving your kids more interested in smoking. In Big Tobacco's Fantasyland, the world's deadliest industry is your child's friend. See reality at undo.org.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
So, Dr. Malveaux, you raised this earlier, and I want to come back to this right quick here. There are a number of strikes underway, as we know, in Hollywood, where I sit right now in Los Angeles, and across the country. We averted narrowly a strike at UPS, but there are, we'll know the next 48 hours, next 24 hours, in fact, whether or not a number of unions go on strike in the auto industry, and it looks like they will. So across the country, in a variety of fields, a variety of disciplines, work disciplines, labor arenas, people have had enough, and they are going on strike. How do you read that? Because I'm trying to recall the last time I've seen this many people. You know, Dr. King used to always say that when you straighten your back, you're going somewhere, because folk can only ride your back if it's bent. And I see a lot of folk, a lot of labor workers starting to straighten up their backs. How are you reading that in this American moment?
I think it's a good thing from a political level and a activist level. I think it's a bad thing for the economy, but that's always going to be the tension. I mean, when we look at auto represents roughly, just the auto workers with the 3 unions, roughly 4% of the labor force. The way that the UAW is approaching this is they're not going to go on a general strike. They're talking about they're going to strategically have locational strikes. Mm-hmm. They have $825 million in their strike fund. If people go on strike, they usually pay them like $500 a week. They could sustain a 3-month strike for everybody. 3 months. That's a huge stick to carry. They've got a lot that they have going for themselves. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you know, the auto industry has the opportunity, if they don't come back to work, to lock them out, which is also a tool. But I think what's exciting about it is, for the longest time, I mean, really since Ronald Reagan, who was a strike breaker, labor has been a little timid. Mm-hmm. And I remember my colleague Richard Trumka, who was the head of the AFL-CIO, sure, and a dear friend, and I remember him talking about just resilience for workers. But workers are scared. We just talked about, you know, prices rising. So who, when prices are rising, says, well, gee, I'm going to go on strike. I'm not going to have any money. Yeah. Because the $500 a week they get is a fraction of what they would be earning. Yeah. But it's an exciting time for me because I like to see labor with a backbone. Mm. The only way we do better is when labor goes out there. When a black man is in a union, he's making a third more than a black man who is not in a union. When a black woman is in a union, she's making 25% more than a black woman who is not in a union.
Yeah, those numbers are real. Dr. Julia Malveaux, if you're in Southern California, tomorrow, Friday the 15th, 5 to 7 p.m., you can see her at Catula by Africana, a bookstore here in L.A. Catula by Africana. That's Friday, September the 15th, 5 to 7. Tell you more about that when we come forward in our remaining moments with her. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family was founded to help address domestic violence and sexual assault in the Asian and the Pacific Islander communities. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family's mission is to build healthy and safe communities by addressing the root causes and consequences of family violence and violence against women. They are committed to meeting the specific cultural and language needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander women and their families. CPAF's vision is of an Asian and Pacific Islander community that embraces healthy relationships and works in partnership with other communities to eradicate all forms of violence. To access services, volunteer, or for more info, visit nurturingchange.org. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe everyone deserves to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Your floors can go from clean to dirty fast. From juice spills, whoops, to muddy paw prints, to little sticky finger marks. Good thing your Swiffer WetJet works fast too. Swiffer WetJet easily cleans everyday messes as quick as they happen. The next mess is right around the corner. So grab your Swiffer WetJet and just spray, push, all clean.
Sounds different. Huh. This is Tavis Smiley.
Got a few minutes left with Dr. Julianne Malveaux, noted economist. Again, if you're in the Southern California area on tomorrow, Friday, the 15th of September, 5 to 7 p.m., she'll be at the African Goods Store, Katula by Africana, signing her latest book. It's called Surviving and Thriving, 365 Facts in Black Economic History, the second edition. What do you make of the historic way, the unique ways that black folk have survived and thrived down through the years, Dr. Malveaux?
You know, Tavis, we have been resilient despite all odds. There have been laws passed to prevent us from accumulating. And I'm working on, this is a reprint of an old book, was 2010, with a new foreword by me and an intro by Roland Martin. And it's exciting. The facts do not change. But I am working on a new book called Lynching, the Wealth Gap, and Reparations. And doing the research on lynching, you know, it's so painful. But what we see is the systematic ways that the illusion of white supremacy, please use the word illusion before you say white supremacy, but the illusion of white supremacy and the legally enforced racial hierarchy prevented us from accumulating. A man was lynched because he refused to leave his land. A man was lynched because they said he was black and arrogant and wealthy. So he was lynched. I mean, so when you have that happening psychologically, a lot of people say, hey, I'm not going to accumulate. Or as one man, I found a quote where he said, I had to make a choice between my land and my life. And so I left Arkansas. I had to make a choice between my land and my life. So brothers and sisters who have worked their whole lives, these sundown towns, and we have them here in California too. Sundown towns, you got to get out of town by the end of the day. When you left all your stuff.
Yep.
So on one hand, we are a resilient people. On the other hand, we have prevailed against all odds. And so surviving and thriving, in my mind, I told people when I wrote it back in 2010, it's a love note to my people. I want us to know how resilient we are. how phenomenal we are.
Yeah. It is called, once again, Surviving and Thriving. That's the second edition, 365 Facts in Black Economic History. Tomorrow, again, if you're in Southern California, check her out at Catula by Africana, a beautiful African goods store, 5 to 7 p.m. on the 15th tomorrow. Dr. Malveaux, good to have you on. What a great hour with you and Maxine Waters talking about economic policy in this country. But this data is disturbing, and we'll keep talking about why Donald Trump is not better for this country on the economy. I digress for now. Have a great signing tomorrow, and thank you for the time. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore.